So I remember I was thinking about what story I wanted to tell for my life. And I remember I was talking to someone and I was like, I'm not going to tell that story. And they were like, oh, I would tell that story if it was me, right? The story about my mother and my father and, how I grew up and everything like that. And as a up and coming screenwriter, I realized that those stories are so expected. You know exactly what I'm going to say. You already know what you're looking for. You're looking for some type of injustice or a traumatic experience that has inevitably occurred. And I can't give you that. I can't give you that. So when I think about the stories that I want to tell, the story that I'm going to tell, it's going to be a story in which I got to make decisions, And to me, that's the story of a up and coming artist. That's the story of a young entrepreneur. And that's my story. I think when you're young, you don't really get a say, you don't really get to make choices. You don't really get to be the one who's like the active participant in the story, and looking back, we're kind of just like the narrators. So the art of storytelling is so personal, but I think that if you're gonna do it, if you're gonna tell a story, especially today, if you're an artist and you're writing because it is something that is a part of you and you can't really get away from it, try to reflect on the times. And I think what people need is hope. So I think instead of telling a story in which I really didn't play a role in, I was just like, I was there. I was more like a background. You know what I mean? I was a background. Like there wasn't really anything I could have done or did to change that story and that trajectory and make it different. So I think a lot of times when we think about our life and our stories and the things that we tell ourselves, and as someone who's really been somewhat like bound to my story, it's true. If you really want to break the cycle, not just generational curses, but the cycle in your life, you have to tell a different story. And if you are an artist, a writer, such as myself, you actually have the skills to write and tell a new story. So what is that story going to be? How are you going to show up? And what can we learn from the choices that you've made? I think that's what people want to hear. So I think so many of us actually get stuck at this point in our stories, right? In our lives. That's kind of like the hit for stories and the whole purpose of this video. You get stuck. And you don't realize that now is the time for you to engage. This is the part where you get to throw in how this is going to go. This is how you get to determine what is going to be the outcome, And I completely understand why they say that we're the authors of our lives. We are the ones who hold the pen in the pad. And not just in terms of like superficial, easily digestible manifestation techniques, but more so in the sense of like, you get to kind of decide what this next thing is going to be. And obviously, you don't have all the say because there is a God and, life is full of unpredictability, but at least be a participant. And so what story are you going to write? What story are you going to tell when people ask you about yourself? Where are you going to start? Where are you going to start? Where are you going to begin? So I'm encouraging you today. Begin.